Hey, this is Jody with WeldingTipsAndTricks.com. As I mentioned before, I'm setting up a new welding area, and part of that means moving my StrongHand Build Pro table and re-leveling it. And so that's what I'm doing today, and I'm going to do a little job with it. I've got these leveling casters that you kind of can level them with your feet without bending over. And so taking a few minutes and using a little laser transit, I decided to just kind of see how level I could get this thing. And about 10 minutes, it was pretty darn level. That's more level than any other welding table I've ever had anyway. But for the job I'm doing today, I don't really need it that level. I just wanted to show you that. I'm going to do a little down and dirty job today. I'm going to build a little table that holds this portaband stand that I built a while back up at the same height as the StrongHand table. So I got to take this measurement here to the little cutting pedestal that I made, and then subtract or add to this measurement, and that's how high I need to make the top of my table. And so I'm going to build the top of that today using this handy little stand here. Now normally I could cut those miters on a horizontal bandsaw like this, but this big angle swivel block is froze shut and it won't budge. So I'm going to plasma cut them outside in the pretty fresh air. So I drug the portable welding table outside where I don't have to such of a mess to clean up, you know, with the sparks from the plasma and the whatnot. And I'm just going to make the miter cuts using the plasma cutter here with a little drag tip. And you can make a pretty accurate cut if you have a straight edge. And for what I'm doing today, just whipping together the top for this table, that will be plenty good enough. Now here's the down and dirty part. These little magnetic things were actually designed just to be used to turn any hole into a threaded hole from up underneath and bolt things down with a lot of pressure. But just for what I'm doing today, they're a real quick and easy way to get a 90-degree angle. So I just popped them in there, got my straight edge 90, and I'm going to put this thing together, and I'm going to get a tack on here in a second, and I'll show you how quickly this works. Just putting a box together like this. I want to get at least 2 tacks on there so it doesn't move anywhere, and then I'll kind of handle it kind of gingerly here so I don't move it before I get another tack on there. And then I'll do the other side just like this. I'll kind of line them, make sure they're all up tight against the thing, and I'll take that one I already tacked and place it there just in case I have to make some adjustments and gapping and whatnot. But I'll tell you, just eyeballing it gets it straight because you got that hole pattern to eyeball it against, and so I don't even need to do anything. I can see that it's running true with the holes, and I've got one dead 90 angle with those little attachments there, the magnetic, you know, hole things. And so I'm ready to go ahead and button it up. I want to get at least 2 tacks on each side and then flip it over and then get some more before I weld it out and do a little quick final check. That one I had to give a little squirt because that did have a little gap in that one. Again, the plasma cutter makes kind of acceptable joints, but not perfect. I'll show you that in a minute. And to check the squareness, I'll measure corner to corner here, and I came up with pretty much exactly 25 inches each way, so no surprise there because I could see it was square with the running true with the hole pattern. So it's tacked up, and I'll give it a once over and a look. We'll show you how the gaps are. Get at least one more tack on the inside. That's a pretty typical one there. Got a little gap out there, a little gap here, a little bit bigger gap over here, and a pretty big gap there, but in a minute we'll see how that's not a problem. I actually like to have a gap about that size for downhill corners like this, because otherwise if it's saw cut, you've got a point there. You can kind of either have to grind off or you're just going to have a lot of weld out there, just piles up. But with a little gap like this, it just kind of punches right in there. The puddle just kind of chases you downward, and you pretty much get a full penetration weld that doesn't stick out any. In case this has to go inside something, you wouldn't have hardly any grinding or no grinding to do. So that, on the other hand, is a little bit bigger gap than you'd want. But for what this is, it's not a deal killer either. You see, just turn the machine down a little bit, and that puddle just chases you down. Don't spend much time on the middle. Just kind of run downward a little bit on each side and then whip across and run down, and that one's done too. Not ideal, but again, it's going to be plenty good enough to hold that portaband up. Okay, so Now, just for the sake of filming and getting it up here where we can see what's going on, I want to weld these things downhill. They have a little gap in them. Also, it gives me a chance to show you the little one-hand clamp there to position something. And so we'll run these things just downhill at 45s, and I'll give the other side equal time here. You can see the little gap. It's just kind of sinking in there. Now, here comes the slider. Machinist brought over this part and said, hey, we got to do this, and we got to get it done today. So I got to pull off building that little portaband stand and build those. Now, a slider is a job that slides in and takes priority over whatever else is going on. That's loosely quoted from Keith Finner of Turn Right Machine Works. So that happens all the time in real life. You know, things are hot. You get a hot job, and you got to pull off what you're doing and do the hot job. I'll show you this in a future video, but using some of this tooling, I was able to get these angles, you know, just right and nothing flat. That'll be in a week or two. Anyway, since I wasn't able to show you finishing this little project here, I thought maybe I would show you some of the more precision jobs I've done on this table, just a little review of things over the past year or two. And one of which was this little set of 20 of these little parts. They were actually a sewer tractor or sewer crawler. And in the past, I had to do all this manually, but I was able to put together a precision fixture for assembling this thing, just with the tooling package, not having to tack anything. And then, of course, I could tear it down in nothing flat. But basically, it just simulates the rubber track that goes around the wheels and runs on the roller guides. And I put some stops on the end, and it let me set the thing down in there, run it up against a stop, and bam, it was ready to get tacks on. So I was able to get them done a whole lot quicker than in previous years when I didn't have the table. And then there was this little set of 4 of these little precision parts here. I say precision, I mean they had a pretty tight tolerance on them as far as pivot points and things like that. And so you know, again, you can see just a quick little, very simple little fixture that let me assemble them, lock them down, get them tacked, and get them right. I'll tell you, work is just a whole lot more fun when you have the right tools. You know, it's just like working on the car. You know, they call for special tool number 964, and you don't have it, and it makes you pull your hair out. So this actually makes work fun when you got stuff here to be able to rotate and spin parts like you want them. And again, this has got tooling with little V pads that let you make a little makeshift little turntable type situations here. I did it a second ago in the horizontal position, but found out I liked it better this way, just dropping it down like this. I tell you, when you're in welding school, get comfortable. At least my instructor did, and that was good advice. Actually, that's probably the most important thing you can do to make a good-looking weld is be comfortable. So being able to spin a part like this and not get in a bind just helps you make a better weld. And then this last job was probably one of the more challenging jobs I've ever done, with more precision required. It was a round part, a big heavy aluminum fixture that had to be indexed with a hub in the center that was going to be machined, and had to be pretty tight though. So using the tooling and using the hole for a center line, scribing a circle, using the hole pattern to index and clock this center hub and get it like it needed to be, just proved to be pretty easy, actually. I thought this job was going to be really difficult, and it turned into actually just something enjoyable. So having plenty of places to clamp, hold things down, and get them tacked is a big benefit. See, this thing's got some odd angles on it, but I didn't really have to know the angles because everything was held in place. All I had to do was hold it with one hand, tack with the other, and get it done. Now, there was a ton of welding on this thing, so you can see all the clamping to hold that outer flange flat, and a ton of welding on the inside of the center hub, both sides of it, on here and up underneath. Just a lot of spools of wire went into this thing. Again, this is using a spool gun. I was using an Iron Man 230 with a spool gun to do this. And just a ton of welding. But the machinist reported, and we outsourced the machining of the flange, and you reported it had very little run out, and so the table did its job of holding that thing down flat. So stay tuned, and in a week or two you'll see this little slider job on fitting it up using the tooling and tacking and welding it, and also several more tips that are coming up in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I'm welding up a bumper for a Jeep that's a kit that's available from Swag Off-Road. More plasma cutting tips using that little Miller 625, and tungsten sharpening, and a whole lot more stuff.